Sounds and Stadiums webinar. My name is Lisa Rodeo, and I'm the Director of Community and Education with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. So we're really pleased to have you here for this series as part of our cultural programme with the Football Association and the Arts Council England, along with Women's Heroes 2022. We're really pleased today to be joined by lovely hosts and panellists to discuss the history and future of women in the football and music sectors. So really pleased to have you guys here. We've got a live audience in the room in Brighton today, sweltering a bit, but persevering, so thank you for making your way down. Everybody joining us online, welcome, and thank you for joining us. Please do feel free to use the chat function, the Q&A function on the webinar, and we'll be able to answer and ask any questions that you might have at home. Without further ado, I'm going to turn you over now to our host, Dr. Mandeep.
Thank you, Lisa. Hi. Really great to have you all here. Thank you for braving the heat. This is indeed the hottest day of the year ever, or the hottest day England has ever had. I am Dr. Mandeep, and I'm a journalist and an author. I've just released a book called The Values Compass, which is the colour of my shirt, so you can't miss it in wherever you see it. And with me, I have three incredible women, and I'm really happy that you're all here. And we've just changed history to her story. I have Rose, Shirley, and Jean. And I'm going to ask each of you to say just 2 lines of introduction and 1 fun fact. I'll start off. My fun fact is that I've travelled now 185 countries. And I'm going to pass it over to Rose, who I know has had equally kind of international groundbreaking career. I'm just going to say, I think you are the one and only Scottish person who has ever been in the World Cup, ever won the World Cup, if I'm correct. But go ahead and please give us your
but you've stole my fun fact, aren't you?
Oh, no, I meant to say the fun fact. I meant to say it.
Anyway, I'm Rose Reilly. I'm Scottish. I got banned for playing for my country because I was playing in Italy as a professional. I won the World Cup, and after I was named the world's top female footballer in the world, so quite proud of that.
Top female footballer in the world.
Yeah.
And we'll go into that whole ban and everything else very soon. So thank you and welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Guys. Shirley, maybe get a few lines of introduction. And I would say the fun fact is that you've come over, had this sweltering journey today, but there'll be another fun fact, I'm sure. So, a little introduction.
Yeah, I'm best known, I think, for the fact that I wrote the first symphony in 40 years and conducted it in Europe.
Huge, that is huge. I know there's a million other things that you have done,
but
that's what you're best known for. Fair. I actually had notes and sheets on you, so I know that. Jean, please, welcome.
Hi there everyone, thanks for coming along this evening. My name's Jean Williams, and I'm perhaps best known for writing about the history of women's football over the last 25 years, including working with FIFA in 1999.
There's someone who's kind of, would you like this glass of water?
I'll just step out actually, while we recover from
Bless.
Promise it's not the dreaded thing.
No, don't worry. Thank you. We'll start with you, Jean. Well, one of the fun facts was that you were also you were a footballer as well as writing about football. Is that what got you interested in football?
Yeah, I suppose what got me interested in it was that I originally trained to be an English teacher. I moved from a sixth form college into a university and was told that to work at a university I'd need to do a PhD. And at that time I was playing, I was chair of a regional league, I was doing my coaching badges. I was basically never in because of football. And so I thought somebody had already written about the history of women's football. That turned out not to be the case. And so I completed my thesis in 2002, which is 20 years ago now, and the first book, Again for Rough Girls, came out in 2003.
And so your career began. So could you maybe, each of you, all share with me one role model that has been instrumental to your career, or indeed someone that you look up to? It could be someone who's in history, who has, died and gone, it doesn't matter who. I just wanted to see who has really shaped you or really broken ceilings for you or helped you to get where you are.
Apart from Rose, you mean?
That's so beautifully put.
Grazie,
So-
Jean, grazie.
No, Rose is an absolute legend, and you know, more people should know her story. I guess for me, as a female academic, and I think perhaps this will connect with Shirley too to some extent, is that there wasn't really a role model. There wasn't really anybody who was doing what I was doing, so in many respects, kind of pioneered the study of women's football, which when I started to do it 20 odd years ago, people just would laugh in social situations. You know, oh, you're doing a PhD in that, I bet it won't take you very long. Those kind of responses. And but it helps, of course, when as your career develops. But even within that, when I was made a professor in 2015, I was the first ever female professor of history at that particular university. And then a couple of years later, I moved to another university to work in an Institute for Sport, and I was the first female professor in the Institute for Sport. So it is, and I think a lot of people on this panel will be the same, is that you have to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Yes, we've seen that this, you know, the UEFA is happening right now. And I saw, as I was walking in, I don't know if you did when you were coming down from the train station, there were banners up, there are kind of flags put up everywhere. There's one right behind me like this, but all over Brighton. And as I was speaking to people, they said, well, yeah, I mean, for example, the match with England completely sold out 3 months in advance, 30,000 people in the stadium. And the match, I think, even all the matches, whether it's Norway v Austria or whoever it is, has had a really good reception. But Rose, you've seen a lot of this. Well, firstly, let's get to your role model before I...
Well, I've got two, one female and one male. The female was Mary Rand, British athlete, English athlete, who won Olympic gold in the long jump and also in the pentathlon. And she got married to her coach, an English guy, had a kid or something. But then when she decided to divorce him, she was getting put out the British team because how very dare she?
Really? Divorce her husband?
Yep.
What has that got to do with her profession?
Well, that's life. That's us women. That's us sportswomen, what we've been up against all the time. So yeah, she was my first role model. My second was a footballer from Glasgow, Jimmy Johnson, who played for Celtic, and he was phenomenal. He was technically, for me, was the best footballer that I've ever seen. He's sadly not with us now, but Mary Rand and Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, very well put. I want to come back to you for your story, please. Shirley, your role model, please.
Yeah, thanks for bringing this one up. There were no women composers when I was at university ever. Didn't hear of any. So I certainly had no female role models for people that wrote orchestral music, and I didn't know of anybody actually writing orchestral music when I was even in my teenage and early years. In fact, I thought composers were only Bach, Beethoven and Brahms, so, you know, 17 from the 1900s. I didn't know you had contemporary composers that were like walking along. So I can't think of role models, so I was just forging my own way, writing music as a hobby, because I just enjoyed writing music. The first, composer I can think of.
It doesn't have to be composer. It could be any role model from any, you know, industry, walk of life, anything.
I'll just have to say my mother.
Yeah. Fair. Am I
Yeah.
right? I could be wrong, but is it true that while you were at Cambridge studying music, you started thinking about how could you make music more applicable? Like, who is the audience, essentially?
Very much so, yeah.
And therefore connects, even there, you've started to connect sport and music together because you're thinking, where is this going?
That's right.
And therefore you created this anthem.
That's
We're
right.
wondering whether we could even play this anthem, could we?
The Euro.
Yes, yes. And I hear that you kind of crowd sourced it and you sourced the lyrics from different places. You
That's
know,
right,
you
via
went out.
Resound, yes.
Do you want to introduce it a little bit, Shirley? 'Cause
Yeah, do you want me to introduce the anthem? Okay, well, you may know that I've written several anthems, including the London Symphony Anthem that I wrote for the Queen's Golden Jubilee.
Wow.
So that was the first one that I
I've
wrote.
changed my role model now.
Oh, I love it. We're going to be each other's fan club. This is right. That's exactly right.
So that was possibly the first anthem that I wrote, and I had to consider my audience, but I'm a composer that has always considered that. And if you know the kind of tradition of art music composers at universities, nobody thinks about the audience. What is that? So that's the tradition I come out of. Nobody, our art is much more important than the audience. So anyway, I was one of those freaky people thinking about an audience. And
Thank God. We do matter, kind of, right? Do you want to know? Yes.
Well, I thought so. So I was given this brief from the Arts Council and from my local council to write a huge work. It could be as big as you like, because it's going to be performed like the Royal Philharmonic. I thought, oh wow, this is amazing. So I wrote the anthem, thinking of the words, thinking of what persons that I knew living in London would like to hear. And I wrote something that would be motivational, that would motivate me, motivate the people that I knew, and say something about history. And in fact, my school anthem is Jerusalem. So I kind of based it on that, but a contemporary version. And I tend to do that. So I source well-known classical works, and then I bring it sort of...
Good. Up into...
I kind of deconstruct and reconstruct. And that's a method I've really been using from as far back as I can remember. So I'm very much based in classical traditions. That's, all my university training, art music training, classical traditions. But I've used those structures, deconstructed them, and rebuilt them in a contemporary way. I think that's probably the best way I can describe what I do. So for the anthem, the UEFA anthem, the Women's Eurovision anthem, which I was so honoured to write, we sourced words from the communities, the host communities, that all these stadium cities hosting the UEFA tournament, Women's Euros tournament. Those words came to me via Hazel Gould, who works for the Royal Philharmonic. So I received these lyrics and wondered, what do I do now? They're looking strong, they're looking positive, they're looking contemporary. And I knew that I'd be working with the Royal Philharmonic, so I had a whole palette of colours to choose from. So French horns, trombones, trumpets, violins.
As in they gave you all
cellos,
the resources and said,
all the resources,
create
harp,
what you
yes,
like.
and
Wow,
yes,
how nice.
fantastic. It's not often that
Yes.
as a composer you get to write for an orchestra, because it's extremely expensive to have something performed.
Yeah.
You talk tens of thousands of pounds to get.
what a privilege.
It really is a
Perfect.
privilege, it really is.
Yeah.
And so I got the words, and immediately I had been thinking about ideas for the anthem, and I knew I wanted it to be really upbeat and contemporary, and my family had said to me, make it upbeat and contemporary. And I came up with something that I thought would appeal to a range of people that like classical, people that like more popular music, and here we are.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Yes.
It's Sunday, we're ready to
was so upbeat and so
That was lovely.
forward-looking. Really great. I have to say, I had a real positive energy about it.
Thank
And so
you.
you kind of think, wow, with that type of impetus, women's football there's no stopping it. And I'm going to go to Eugene because we have this feeling that there's no stopping it, and hopefully this is the case. And I heard that, but I could be wrong, that maybe in the 1800s, women's football began, had huge audiences, was almost like they're right at the very beginning, perhaps even right at the beginning, and maybe even, I think we've seen evidence and pictures of it even earlier than that. So tell us a little bit of the history. When did it begin, how it began, and what that trajectory it is? And then I'd love to go into your story as a kind of an example of that, if that we could.
Okay, yeah, great. So the thing to say about women's football history is that it's as old as football history. So we've got women playing different forms of folk games, and including in China a game that was called shuzhu, which we today would think of as kind of freestyling or keepy-uppies, which evolved actually over 2,000 years. So very, very ancient games, and we've got examples of kind of folk football all around the world, linked with the harvest, and where the ball is kind of symbolically the seed going into the earth. So that's very, very ancient, and that's the example of shuzhu, and women were very much part of that. But
So
when
it's
the
literally Chinese women kicking a ball about in that time. Yes.
and it evolved to be a game that they played over nets and into nets. So again, 2,000 year evolution. In fact, I've been to whole conferences in China on shuzhu. So there are people who just write about that as specialists. But we think of football in terms of modern football when the FA codified football with the 11 original laws of the game in 1863. And then a lot of people will know that the FA at that time were male amateurs, and we get the male professional game in 1888 with the formation of the Football League. So women's football, we have images from 1869, and you'll see some of those on the postcards around the room.
With really big audiences, wasn't it?
We have really big audiences from about 1881. So that was in England. It was billed as England v Scotland. It wasn't actually an international match, but it was billed as that to get a large paying audience. And then the British Ladies Football Club, formed in London by Nettie Honeyball, which is kind of too good to be true that that's actually her name. It was a pseudonym. And Lady Florence Dixie, who was the aristocratic patron, they played something like 160 matches from 1895 through to 1902, when the FA issues its first prohibition on women's football, where it says men's teams may not play against ladies' teams, and that's because they were playing against one another and getting very large paying crowds.
And why shouldn't they play against each other?
Well, the FA didn't think it was suitable. And then we get the very large games in the First World War, which is crowds of between 20 and 45,000, played in major stadiums. And women's football actually gets slightly bigger after World War One than during the World War. And then the FA issued a ban that was in place for almost 50 years.
So it became bigger because men are at war and women are working in factories, and then women are playing football to release, just like any, as men and women always do.
No, it's actually kind of double war work. So they go to work in the day in the factories, dirty and dangerous work in munitions. A lot of them got blown up. A lot of them got their hair and stuff turned yellow with the chemicals. But instead of resting at night, they went to play games of football for charities, often for wounded soldiers returning from the front, or for health charities, the most disadvantaged in their society.
Wow, that's incredible though. So it's being done for philanthropic and charitable reasons?
Absolutely, for their communities, yeah.
Wow. And then the ban happened because...
Because the Football League expanded in 1921 to an additional 2 divisions, and the thought is that the Football League, who was affiliated to the FA, wanted to protect whatever revenues there was in paid football for the Football League as a business. And so that was the reason behind the ban.
In 1921, and we've been slowly working our way up.
Scotland issued the ban at a slightly different time, same with Wales, same with Ireland, but the FA rescinded the ban in 1969, the WFA was formed, and the Scottish FA and the Welsh FA, etc. did similar things at about the same time, and then you get the first ever official England match against Scotland in 1972, which had to be played in Greenock, I understand, because you couldn't get access to
it wasn't an official ground. The SFA, the Scottish Football Association, wouldn't let us have official ground or an official referee.
So this is a whole...
We managed to get a ball to play, which was a success in itself.
A whole 100 years after the first original game between England and Scotland. So tell us, Rose, what's your story? And please share with... I almost feel like we're going to now get a real history, a living history, because you've lived it as the legend you are.
How long have you got? Right, it started off, I was only 3 years of age and told by my mother I had disappeared from the family home, and she found me at the local football ground. Then the usual things happened. It was Christmas and I asked Santa Claus for a ball, and I got a doll and I was devastated. Then I went out and spoke to this wee guy who had a ball. I would love to know who he is nowadays, but he wanted my doll and I wanted his ball.
You'd love to know who he is, as in you don't know who he is.
Well, no, I can't remember. I was young. I was about 4 or 5 years of age.
Yeah, you'd have to
and I
find
used
him.
to sleep with the football for 2 reasons. First, I was in love with it. And second, I was afraid my mum would take it off me because my family were so against me playing football because it wasn't seen to be the done thing for girls. I started school when I was only 4 and a half. I had to travel 5 miles to school because I'm Catholic and the Catholics went to different schools. So there was started school when I was 4 and a half, and there were separate playgrounds for the boys and the girls. We couldn't interact with each other at playtime or lunchtime or whatever. But the boys were playing football, so I went to play, and I get physically punished. I got the belt on my hands for playing.
You mean the...
Yeah, the strap. And so, but I went every day to play football, and I got punished. I get punished every day, and I decided not to cry because I thought, from an early age, I thought emotion's weakness, and I'm not going to show you that I'm weak. Then the headmaster said, "You're never going to learn, Rose Reilly," and I said, "No, it's you that's not going to learn. I just want to play football," basically. So I never stopped. Got punished all the time, never stopped. Then Mary Rand was my heroine when I was growing up because I was also an athlete, and I was a pentathlete, a kind of all-rounder, and I got selected for the shortlist for the Commonwealth Games. So I'm up to, oh, thank you. I went up to St Andrews University, and it was all private school girls.
How old were you now?
Barely 16.
Okay.
So off I goes for a week's training with the team, and I didn't have anything. I didn't have like track suits or what they had everything. I had nothing, and they were kind of sneering at me when I arrived in the scene. But then I got accepted because of my attitude, and I didn't care if they were bullying me or laughing at me. I didn't care. I was doing what I loved. Then the coach said I was going to be in the team for the Commonwealth Games, so I'd need to stop playing at football because I was developing too much thigh muscle, which I call football legs, because you're kicking the ball and whatever, and it's not good for athletics. So my mum and dad were delighted that I had a career in the horizon for athletics because they were completely against me playing football. Everybody was. And so I stopped playing football for a week, and then I gave my athletics career up for football. There was nothing in the horizon.
Yeah.
There was nothing in the horizon for women's football, but I gave up the athletic career to play football.
Well, so what made you do that? If there's, here you are, you're about to, everyone's supporting you, you're about to kind of leap into athletics.
Yeah.
And athletics is a well-trodden path.
Yeah.
and you can't see anything in female football, and we've just heard about
Yeah.
the demise.
Well,
did you-
first of all, I'm my own person.
yeah,
Nobody decides for me.
yeah,
The passion and the love I had for football was so great. So I went to the Glasgow newspaper, the Daily Record, and because I was going to ask if there was any professional teams abroad, because there was nothing here in Great Britain at the time. And the secretary said, have you got an appointment with it was this Stan Shivers, he was a well-known sports reporter, and I said yes, but I didn't. And I arrived in the scene and they said, could I help you? And I said, yeah, I want to be a professional footballer. And they just looked at me as if I was crazy. But then he said that it would help me, and he did.
oh,
But he,
there are good people out there. Yeah.
he insisted that I take a friend with me because I was so young.
Yeah.
And one of Scotland's great footballers, Edna Nealis, who sadly is not with us anymore, we got a trial for Stade de Reims in France. So off we went. We flew there and we got signed at half-time. So come back home, got our bags and whatever, and off. We played in Reims for about 6 months when scouts from AC Milan seen us playing and signed us on. We were now professional footballers.
Wow.
And the strange thing is, when the aeroplane landed in Linate Airport, right bang in the middle of Milan, and we were walking across the tarmac, there were no buses or whatever nowadays, you just had to walk. And I felt at home, I felt it was like a mother's embrace. I was in love with Italy right away. Unfortunately, Edna was homesick and went home. So I was staying myself in a hotel for a year. We didn't have a phone at home.
So you
I'd
paid for a hotel for a year to do this?
Pardon?
You paid for a
No,
hotel?
no,
They
no, the
paid you?
team.
Because now you're
played.
professional.
Yeah, professional. So
Yeah.
they paid for the hotel.
Yeah, good.
I didn't have a phone at home, so there was no communication with my parents, brothers and sisters. And I used to speak to myself in the mirror at night because I had nobody to speak to. Because no, it wasn't a sad way.
Okay.
It was a way of coping. No, I wasn't sad. Absolutely no.
Good.
Because my teammates didn't speak English and I didn't speak Italian. So it was me and Rose at the mirror.
Yeah.
How was training today? Aye, great, whatever.
But also you're championing yourself, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
And
good
then
for
I bought a
you.
dictionary and I learned 3 words every day because I wasn't academic, because I got expelled from school when I was 15 for playing football.
Oh,
Then
God,
I got
how
a
many
job. I
sacrifices
got a
for
job in
football?
a local factory. It was a carpet factory in Kilmarnock, and the guys got to know me and they said, "Oh, will you play with us at lunchtime?" So I was playing with them. And one particular game, there was another factory, all men obviously, waited to come on, and they asked if I would play with them. It was a team of Johnny Walkers, the whisky factory from Scotland. So I said yes, and I never went back to work. I just kept playing whoever was arriving in the scene. Of course, I got the sack, and that was it. And my mum nearly killed me all the time. And I said, but I was playing for Johnny Walkers as if it was Real Madrid. Anyway, that was my dream. I paid the consequences, but I followed my dream, and I was convinced I was going to be a professional footballer, and I wanted to be the best. And with sheer hard work, because talent's not enough, as this young lady, I think, could show it in Jean herself.
Everyone, talent is not
talent
enough.
is just the start.
Top tip.
It's hard work, talent, and sheer bloody mindedness.
Yeah.
And don't listen to anybody. You kids, do you play football? Ah, that's good, I thought you did. So never, I always think as women are defined in life. As soon as we're born and when we're growing up, oh, you need to get a boyfriend, then you need to get married, then you need to get kids. It's all panned out for us, you know.
Yeah.
And it's especially in the men's world of football.
Yeah.
And I just want that, especially you young ones now, but also as older ladies, if you want to be something in life, you can be it. You don't have to listen to your mother or father. Sorry, the parents are here, or your teachers or whatever. It's your life. It's your choice. Even if you want to be a cleaner, be the best cleaner. It doesn't matter, as long as you're happy. Because nobody ever asks us if we're happy. Oh, have you got a degree? Oh, what have you done? You know, as if it's a shopping list. What have you got everything? But nobody says, oh, excuse me, are you happy? So I was happy playing football, and so I decided I was going to play football. And so then I started playing for AC Milan in the majestic San Siro.
Wow.
And the first time I went onto the pitch at San Siro, I was on my own. The other girls were in the dressing room. and it's massive. It holds 80,000. And from my hometown in Stewarton, which is a red blaze football pitch, where I've still got wee bits of glass in my knees from playing there, I was at San Siro. So I always remember going to one goal and saying to myself, you're going to score here, Rose, then up to the other goals, you're going to score here. And then I closed my eyes and I thought, it's only 2 goal posts in a football. What's the difference? So that was my approach to...
I really hear the kind of the self-talk that you do in order to kind of shift your mindset into a winner's mindset.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
Yeah,
I think a lot of us can learn
But I
from that.
think the way I succeeded was I used to isolate myself. I would never tell anybody what I was going to do, or my thoughts, or my ambitions, because that would take it away from me.
Right.
And somebody would always try to put a
Stop to it.
aye.
Yeah.
So it was my choice,
Yes.
my life,
Yes.
and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it my own.
Yeah.
And if I follow my sword, it's my choice.
Yes.
Because I think life's all about choices.
I think all of you have, that's excellently put, all of you must have somewhere this kind of winner's mindset, because you have faced real challenges. Like, I know that's the case in music, where you've paved the way. I mean, I don't know any other female composer who has been asked to write these kind of symphonies, etc., etc. So how is it, Shirley, that you have, and I'm going to bring this to each of you, that you kind of break these ceilings? How have you managed to do that so that you've allowed, paved the way for other people? How have you become these trailblazers?
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen myself in that way. I take every day as it comes, but I'm just so moved by what you're saying.
Yes.
The wisdom that you've shown at the age of 4 to be yourself at the age of 4.
And then carried it through.
Absolutely extraordinary. I've never heard anything like it. As a 4-year-old, to have that level of wisdom and determination and vision.
Integrity.
Because I had my mother that really helped me with my
Yeah.
vision, but you didn't seem to have that. Your
No,
mother
no, no,
discouraged you from
no,
doing
no,
football.
no.
Because I often think, well, if I hadn't had my mother, so, I'm just
Yeah,
in
hats
awe,
off.
absolute
Hats
awe.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Absolute awe. And I'm thinking of the stage work, the musical.
And I was like,
It would be fantastic. I mean,
That needs to be done.
Definitely.
Rose
I
the
mean,
musical
what?
needs
Well,
to be done.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
to that point,
What
Rose,
a
isn't it the
story.
case that actually even a film's being made? We're going to come back to
Yeah,
this. We're gonna
film.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
also a Scottish singer-songwriter. She wrote a song about me, Cindy Larson. It's called She Rose,
Yeah.
as in
Yeah,
she
yeah.
rose and she rose.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
And
Very
she
talented
rose, as
singer.
in
I mean-
she rose, like heroes. She
Yeah,
rose.
yeah, what material.
Yes.
That's incredible, absolutely incredible. I mean, I've written a whole series of stage works called Heroines of Opera, and it's all about persons like yourself
Yeah,
Yes, because
that have achieved all these things but nobody really knows about them.
yes, I've heard
So-
about this, because traditionally in operas, it's always the woman who kind of like, they have these tragic endings.
Always
they're just
tragic
killed
endings.
off, or they're
And they're always weak.
yeah, and they're not
they have
allowed to
no-
be
They
themselves.
wouldn't have a character like you in opera, for
Yes,
example,
and
ever.
you've rewritten
They're always
that.
weak. Yeah,
Yes.
I've changed that convention. And I started 30 years ago, and yeah, everybody's, it's very common now for persons to write stage works about any subject, but when I started, it was all, you could only write about Greek myths.
Yes.
I thought, oh, that's strange. Opera seems to be about Greek myths. What's my relation to Greek mythology?
Yes.
So,
And
well,
even those Greek myths have got like a deliberate submissive role for women,
always
right?
submissive roles, all the submissive roles, even contemporary operas that I know, the roles for women are all submissive, or they're still femme fatales, they're flawed characters. I know you'll have flawed male characters in musical stage works, but they're always somehow heroic, and
In the
they're
end.
asserting themselves.
Yes.
They've died tragically, fighting for this or that. But the women are always very submissive and weak, and they can't think for themselves. So, gosh, I wouldn't have any of that in what I was doing.
Yeah, and you
Right.
need a female composer to be able to create that. So you started basically rewriting the narrative.
I certainly did. Yes, there was nobody that I came across that was doing what I was doing, but that's never stopped me. I've always had to do what comes to mind, and I do have the idea that if something comes to mind, as you have those visions, then I can do it. If I can see it, I can do it. And so that's
See it
really
in your mind's eye, you mean?
That's right, see it in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
The ideas don't come there for no reason. And I have to say I've read a lot of Deepak Chopra and lots of those kinds of books that have been very helpful to me, I have to say.
You don't mean that because it was in the book, like I have it on the...
Exactly,
yes,
yeah, you can see it, you can do it. And I've
Yes.
really been grounded by a lot of these philosophies and persons like Deepak Chopra, the Bible. Lots of narratives have helped me to develop a mindset that allows me to follow my vision, as well as having support of my mother and various supporters that I do have. So yes, I just think it's important, as you said, if you want to be a cleaner, be the best cleaner, whatever you want to do. And it's true, persons don't speak about what happiness, are you happy doing what you're doing?
No.
There's this trajectory.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is that over the 20 years or 30 years you've been working now, people have come back to you again and again and said, okay, you wrote this, now can you do this and now can you do that? You didn't just die with being trendy at that time. You carried on, they carried on requesting. So there's a secret to being asked again and again. Either it's because you have good relationships or it's because, you know, you're innovative or something. Share with us what that is so that we can see how, I think it comes back to like sport and music, how we can have it so that women really can grab the hound by the horn, so to speak, and run forward.
Well, everything you said, I resonate with everything about
Yeah.
the discipline. You've got to have the passion. You've got to have the bloody mindedness, really. I'm
But
going
how
to
is
do
it
this,
that you're
whatever.
How is it that you're being asked, though? Is it because people hear about your work, or you had an agent, or how is it that they found you to be able to give you these opportunities of, let's say, writing for the Golden Jubilee, for example?
Well, it's been my persistence, I think, really.
Yeah.
I've not followed any other path apart from my own, because I can only be myself.
Yeah.
You know, within my genre, within my field, a lot of artists are trying to be like this particular, writing this particular style. I wasn't interested in that style of this very complex music that nobody really gets. Very dissonant, harsh, well, it's very highly dissonant music. I don't know, the equivalent might be a Tracy Emin type of style of writing music, but actually not so understandable. So at least you get the unmade bed.
Yeah.
But
We all have one.
yeah, there's a commonality there. But what I was finding in the art music and where I was schooled was that there's no commonality with what was going on down on the ground or anywhere really. And I'm somebody that goes out to clubs, I go to pop concerts, I go to lots of different kinds of music, and I wanted to hear that in the classical music. And the impression I got from when my music was played, people were saying, gosh, we didn't know this was classical music. And so I set up my own orchestra to perform my music because I couldn't get other orchestras.
Because you were bringing hip-hop beats in, you were bringing kind of basically...
reggae beats,
Yes.
soul beats, world music, Soweto music, music from all over the world really,
Yes.
and instilling it in with classical styles. And I didn't have the performers that could perform the music. That was another thing. In the 90s, there were no performers. If you go to conservatoire, you're trained in a very particular way. Mozart, Brahms, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, blah, blah, blah. There were very few performers that could perform my music.
This is what I mean by the trailblazing, that all of you in fields where there's no one else, like you can't find the performers, you're creating something that doesn't exist. You're having to generate even where there's no performers. So how did you do that?
Well, fortunately, I always seem to meet one or two or three people that come along with me, create this thing, and then we go on, we build, and then go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Having formed the orchestra, I was always interested in writing operatic work. I don't know why, but I was always interested in opera. I had studied opera at university, so, and I loved Mozart and all of that, but I wanted something contemporary.
Yes.
And I live in Stratford, and very close to the Theatre Royal Stratford, which has a tradition of very radical work because of a female dramatist. Oh gosh, what's her name again? Anyway, there's thankfully...
It's also where Shakespeare, Stratford upon Avon is where all those theatres are, etc., right?
Well, there's Stratford East, which is where I
Okay.
was,
Okay.
grew up and went to theatre, always there. And they had a local youth group that were interested in opera, and they encouraged me to write my first opera there. So I was working with the local community. I brought in professionals from the Royal Opera House all over, and I had my own orchestra. And I produced it myself, staged it, and it was ran at the South Bank Centre for a week.
Right.
Totally unprecedented, but I didn't know, because I'm not looking around to see who's doing what.
Yes.
I'm doing what I think needs to be done.
Yes.
But yeah, and I was featured on ITV News as the first people's opera, because I had
That's
used
perfect.
people from the community as well as people from the Royal Opera House and so on. But I was always trying to create music that resonated with audiences.
Yes.
And yeah, had an audience.
I have to say, when you talk, that's what I thought. Popular people, etc., etc. So I'm not surprised that that's how it was framed. Jean, do you find that when you're looking at history and you're bringing it into the future, what are the lessons learned? Like, we've seen the challenges that these ladies have gone through and how they've managed to kind of overcome it. And I guess in your studies, or even you yourself in your career, have had a very similar trajectory where you've been the first. So can you give us some examples of that? And what advice do you give for those out there in terms of how to make sure that if they can't see it, they can still do it?
In terms of that, if you can't see it, you can still do it, because a marginalised space is still a space. So if people are ignoring the topic of women's football as they were 25 years ago, I could see when I went down to a local match, or I played on a Sunday, or I did my coaching badges, I could physically see that there was a whole subculture here that nobody had written about. So it was just about making that visible to myself, and writing about it in my own time. You know, I have to give a shout out to Simon, who's at the back of the room, who a lot of people will know, because he literally drove me the length of the country. And how we put the research together is there is no archival availability 25 years ago, so we would literally sit in the front room of an older player and look through her memorabilia and say, have you got a friend, could I look, visit your friend and do that. So marginalised spaces are always spaces that you can create and do the work that you think is significant. It just sometimes takes the rest of the world to kind of catch up with you, and that's what's happened at the moment. Women's football is riding a crest of a wave now that nobody was interested 25 years ago. And the other thing that I think sort of connects the stories and including your own actually is this thing around structural forces. When you look at the structure of things like the way that the musical canon is built and reinforced and taught, and if you look at the histories that we're given at school, a lot of people are not teaching young women about Nettie Honeyball and rebels and all the rest of it. So well-behaved women seldom make history, so just don't be one. Go out and be the kind of person that you absolutely want to be and to see. And actually, that's the way in which things change. But also, going forwards, I think this structure is really, really important, because it's okay for individual women to have agency and to fight against those systems, but until the systems themselves change, until women's football gets the same resource as men's football, and the same for women in music, let alone when we look at different kinds of politics. We need to think about who are the marginalised voices and how can they be brought to the centre. And I think that's a lot of what this project's been about.
Jean, that's really well put. Before I move to the audience, I want just one or two words from each of you in terms of what we can concretely do to have that vision out there. So as in, we've faced the challenges we faced. We know how it's been and how difficult it was right from the very beginning. And what could we do now so that indeed female football, music, this arena, this intersection and beyond can be reinforced in the way that we hope it to be?
Well, first of all, don't be grateful. Ask for more. And when you're
That's bold. That's bold.
yeah,
Yeah.
just ask for more. Always. Yeah.
That is really bold. That's the first time I've ever heard. Don't be grateful. Ask for more. That's excellent. I'm sorry. That's really. I'm just gonna. Even if that tweet comes out of this, that would be enough. Thank you, Rose. Over to you.
Nothing. I think the not just football or music or what anybody's involved in. I think where the decision making in any aspect of life is the boardrooms, and that's where the women are not there.
Yes.
So I'm getting fed up with men making a decision for women. I want women to make the decision for women.
Let's make this concrete. Isn't
Yeah.
it the case that when that ban came about,
Yeah.
there were only men in that boardroom?
Yes, I'll call them faceless men in suits,
Yes.
because they didn't confront me. I didn't get any official notification. I was just kind of told backhandedly that I was banned for life for playing for my country. I played for Scotland against England. By the way, I scored against you. But then England were much stronger and they won 3-2. But I was a proud Scotswoman who went to Italy, won everything I had to win in Italy, but it was always a Scottish heart beating under an Italian jersey.
Yes.
Because somebody had decided that I was banned for life for playing for my country. A young girl.
So you were banned from playing for Scotland from
Yeah.
then on.
Yeah.
Is it because you played for Italy, or why did that happen?
I didn't have any. I was never told, but I can only imagine it's because I turned professional in Italy, and women's football at the time in Scotland were just kind of, shoved to the side. I don't know. It's their game. It's the men's game. They're in charge. They'll tell you who's to play and who's not to play. So they decided I wasn't going to play. So I said, well, I can't swear here, but I just said that isn't the case.
And has a man ever been banned for life like this?
Not
Ever
of
in
my
the history?
knowledge. Not of my
Is
knowledge.
that the case in the history of football? A man has never been banned?
Not to my knowledge for the same thing. I mean, just to be on a panel with you, Rose, on sport and music, I heard a story that when you won the World Cup with Italy
Yeah.
as captain,
Yeah.
that you're...
I wasn't captain when I won the World Cup. I
Oh,
was
were you
in some
not?
games. But anyway, I was captain of all the Italian teams I played for. Even at the early age of 17, they chose me as the captain.
I got told that you won a game and that your teammates sang something like the English national anthem,
Yeah.
and you wanted them to sing Flower of Scotland.
No,
because they
no, we played
no.
against, it was an international game against England. So it was Italy, I was playing for Italy in England. It was the God Save the Queen. So while the English players were singing God Save the Queen, I was singing Flower of Scotland. And then I was singing the Italian national anthem. Just as a proud Scotswoman who got banned for life.
So that has never happened, right? A man has never been banned for life.
Well, some male players have, but not for what Rose. Essentially, when England played Scotland in 1972, the players had to be amateur because neither the FA nor the Scottish FA actually funded the women's side. It was through the WFA, and they received their grants from a body that could only support amateur players.
Yeah, but that was the England team, sorry. The Scottish, we got nothing. We didn't have any money. We had to buy our own strips. And we didn't have a bus to go. We all congregated in Glasgow, some of the girls from Aberdeen and all over Scotland. And we didn't have a bus, and we didn't have the money to pay the bus up front. So we hitched a lift in a furniture lorry. So the Scotland team were sitting in couches, holding on to standard lamps and whatever, for our first international against England. But that didn't deter us. It didn't matter. We were going to do it, and we did it.
So I think that the idea that women need to be on boards, that women need to compose and be able to kind of forge their own, create the space so that popularism is possible and be written into history, and for it to be accurately written, not the way it's popularized in schools at the moment, or even on Wikipedia or other thought platforms. All of this we need to change, and quickly. But I am keen to get out into the audience because I know that you also have questions.
I would just like to say one thing.
Please.
Following you said, yeah. I think it's important to have knowledge. So I think knowledge gives you power. I think I've always studied a lot of different subjects, so I could have, say, studied history at any subject because I was always curious about a lot of things. So I think that has also helped me to relate to lots of different things. I was also trained as an athlete to 14 because I was really good at high jump and the sprint. And I just think all of these experiences have made me, so it's not, I'm a musician, but I'm many things that create an artist. It's not, and I wouldn't, for you to sustain a career, I do think you need, or to be in a field, I do think you need many, many things, certainly as a creative artist, to inform all of that.
Yes, and indeed that brings us back to that intersection of it shouldn't just be either one silo or the other, to bring them together, for us to be well-rounded beings that are supported. Yeah, absolutely, and very well put. So I'd like to go out for questions. Could we get maybe at least 2 questions? Yes, brilliant. Please.
Hello. It's a question for Rose mainly. I'm interested, you went to play professionally in France and Italy. To be honest, I'm quite surprised that the women's game was that well developed at that time, that they had professional clubs. And I'd just be interested to hear a bit more about the difference in respect you got as and how well developed the game was, and the respect you got from the clubs and the managers and the male players for those clubs as well. It'd be quite interesting to hear about that.
Yeah, France was semi-professional, and then I jumped up to being a professional in Italy. Italy had their own federation, their own backing, their own sponsors. We had a media of 20,000 spectators at our matches. We were on the front page of the sports pages, the Corriere dello Sport, La Gazzetta dello Sport. We were on talk shows with the other male footballers from AC Milan, Juventus. So we were treated the same until at a certain stage. I remember when I was playing in the deep south of it in Lecce, and Rems got in touch with me again. So I used to play in the Italian league on a Saturday afternoon, and I'd fly to Paris on the Sunday morning, play in the French league on the Sunday evening because you played before the men's game. Flew back to Italy in the Tuesday morning to train with my Italian teammates, and in the same year I won the Italian league and the French league until I get banned from that as well. for health and safety or whatever they want to call it.
Well, I really like the fact that this conversation is happening, and that kudos to the FA and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. I have a real problem with that word. My dyslexia is coming out, but I'm really pleased that we're able to discuss it so openly, so that we really can make progress in this space, because it's heartbreaking to hear how it was, and how it really was in its glory days, how it became, and now how we want to regain it. We're going to take one last question because we can hear that this beautiful library is soon closing. Yes, please.
How gutted were you that Italy went out yesterday?
Absolutely got it. Absolutely. I've got the Italian flag tattooed here. I can't change that. It's in my heart. But I'm quite... the Italians weren't up for it. Not good enough. And if you're not good enough, you just have to start again. Just train harder, get better, realise and recognise your mistakes, because nobody ever does. A lot of the teams, the Italian team that I know, because my friend, I used to play with the Milena Bertolini, she's the Italian coach, she played with me. There's too much hype for the girls, and they can believe in their own hype, but just when it's these big tournaments, they're getting interviewed, they've got their sponsors, and they actually believe that they've already won before they've won it. And that's when you lose.
Is that just a lack of not having a chance to be experienced, not having those experiences, and so you don't know it?
No, I think actually, even as a musician or something, you know if you've done well or not. When you look in the mirror, you know damn well if you've done well or not. It's not down to experience. It's down to, we have to criticise ourselves.
Yes,
It's not how you fall down, it's how you get back up.
yes.
You said the hype. It's all about there's been too much
The hype, too much
You
hype.
said there's been too much
I
hype.
think it's the same with the England team. The England team have won it,
Yeah.
and that's not good for the players. No, but it's not good for the players.
And I love that. It's not that you fall down, because we all will fall
Yeah,
down. But
yeah.
It's about getting up and getting up and
Getting
getting
up.
up. Yeah.
So the Italians will get back up.
Which
Watch
you
your
have
space.
all done, and hence you have these long careers that you can share with us. So thank you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us in person and online, and I hope you've had as good a time as I have listening to these fabulous speakers tell us about their incredible histories. Just a quick note to say that we've got 2 more of these panels in this series. So on Thursday, we're live streaming from Hounslow, looking at role models and what makes a role model and why we need them. And then on Sunday, in our very final series, we're looking at the future for music and sport, particularly around sustainability and technology. Those kind of big questions that we're all going to have to face. So if you join me in saying thank you once again to our lovely panel. Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Mandeep. Thank you, Jean. And we hope to see you next time.